All right, the next item on our agenda is old business, board policies 820, 880, and 890. We are holding back 890. So we'll only be approving 820 and 880, which was discussed at the committee meeting of the whole. Do I have a motion?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the board policies 820 and 880 as presented in the October 11, 2011 board agenda packet.
Second.
Any discussion? Mary Ann?
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon? Aye. Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. All right, the next one is the IASB press packet policy 75, except for board policy 4:15, identity protection. We discussed this at our closed meeting of the, we discussed it at our committee meeting of the whole. Do I have a motion for this?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the board policies of the IASB press packet number 75, including the revisions to policy 5:200 and policy 6:190, and accept board policy 4:15, identity protection, which was approved by the June 14, 2011 board meeting as presented in the October 11, 2011 board agenda packet.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gary Gritchen. Any discussion? Mary Ann?
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Aye.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. Next item of business is the IASB press policy update number 76. Do I have a motion for this? Let me just, before you give the motion, we discussed this at our last committee meeting of the whole. All right, do I have a motion?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the board policies in the IASB press packet number 76 as presented in the October 11, 2011 board agenda packet.
Do I have a second? Second by Dan Moon. Any discussion?
Well, Kevin, we're 310 and 5/125 included in the packet.
No, we have hold until adopt the 11, 12.
I know, but we're saying that we're going to approve them as presented in the packet. I think at least one of them was in there.
Let's modify, Mike, do you want to modify that to exclude
310
and 5:125?
I'll modify to exclude the ones 310 and 5:125, which is on the second page that
Dan?
says we'll hold until we approve the goals.
And
You
And
second
hold
it?
until
Agreed.
further
Second.
review.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mary Ann?
The chart of accounts is, we didn't make any changes to that. That was as is that day.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's in addition to what was in the press packet.
So what particular policy does the org chart go with?
Chain of
It says
command,
It's
3.3.
exhibit to
Yeah.
330.
Yeah,
3.
it's only exhibit.
And then the other one is
370.
the 370 exhibit.
Administrative succession.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Mary Ann?
Mr. Moon?
Aye.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. Next item, old business, is the facilities rental agreement. Except pages 3, additional charge section, pages 7, 8, Schedule A, facility space charges, page 9, Schedule B, personnel charges, page 10, Schedule C, equipment charges, and page 11, summary of rental agreement.
So hold on this.
This one we're not voting.
We're going to hold on this until
Okay.
committee, facilities committee's meeting next week, or facilities council, advisory council's meeting next week first with Aramark, and to begin revisions. This will probably be on board agenda for a few meetings while we continue to revise the language.
Okay.
Wouldn't we be discussing this during our committee of the whole?
We
Yeah,
could
we
bring
haven't,
that-
we
we could bring
haven't made the revisions yet, so that's why it could be out there for a while. We're still working as a council on the revisions. Once we draft the revisions, I'll bring it to committee of the whole for discussion, and then we'll bring it to following action meeting. But I think that might take a few months.
Okay.
But everything we have in place now is good enough to carry forward right now.
Everything you have in place now, as Tim reported in his budget reports, we've significantly increased our revenues already so far, just on our new fee schedule and charging everybody, and so.
We kind of have an even hand out there, more even than in the past. Thank you.
From our observation, yes.
Okay, then we'll put that on hold. Then the next item, confidentiality of closed session minutes, will be a closed session item that we will discuss, and then we'll make action if needed after our closed session.
Now, do we need to discuss, or does that all remain in closed session, how we want to process them, or is that public discussion?
Well,
I think
processing. No, I think we could,
That could
based
be
on
all
what
closed.
Todd said, we
Yeah.
could talk about it in a closed session.
Okay.
Okay?
When did we have a discussion with Todd on how to discuss?
included.
It was in
It's
the, it was in the
included.
packet.
It was,
The email's in your packet.
There was
He
an
had a
email in the
little-
packet
yeah.
about it.
Right here, second page.
Okay.
All right, so we'll talk that on the side. Next is F, district goals.
So I had some more time to review this with Pam and Leadership Council and Tim. I wanted to get an updated copy to you. What this has is just so we have 3 years of history for those that apply. We do have the due dates have been entered in. The year 12 are ones that apply to strictly this year. In regards to the ones that deal with academic achievement and school culture, Pam and I are still working with some of the other building level administrators on setting benchmarks and targets, but we thought it would probably be effective for the board to just provide a progression and show that we're continuously tracking. Instead of assigning specific benchmarks or targets, this could help us eventually get a dashboard up on the website to show our progress academically and culturally at the building level. And then what eventually would happen is the performance would shift to the right, and we'd always have a 3-year trend on top of the current year. And under the finance goal, the state and national awards, I told her to put on a separate page because that chart was running a couple pages long, and I wanted to keep it simple for you to see that. So there'll be an attachment on the website and on the semester reporting that we'll do for the board that you can see how we're doing on the state and national awards. For the finance, so you look at 2012, the question mark is always how we finished the year. So the front number is how we finished the year, and the back number on the slash mark is the projected fund balance on that year's fiscal budget. So that's how we could track that. Long range, go ahead.
So on that one, for 2012, our target was 23.35 ending fund balance, and
Right.
then you will put that number in. Okay.
Correct. So that's the number that, when we talk about some of these expenditures changing and stuff, it's up to Tim and I and Pam to make sure we stay within budget and meet that fund balance, projected fund balance goal. The long-range financial plan, we had a great meeting last week with the Finance Advisory Council as well as with PMA. I contacted the individual board members, sent some follow-up information and weekly updates. Tim is in the process of getting PMA on board and working on that agreement. And the goal is that the end of November committee of the whole meeting, if they're prepared, we've set a goal so that we could dedicate that to providing the Board of Education an in-depth financial analysis of the district and some projections of where we're heading financially. And then I'd like to use December and some of January to educate the staff. And then I think, as we talked about as an advisory council, we start having some public meetings with the community and staff members after the first of the year to start talking about next year's budget And if reductions have to be made, how do we focus our efforts on those reductions? So that's in regards to finance. Does anybody have any questions on that?
What are we going to do? I didn't understand. Are you going to fill this chart before we approve the goals? I didn't understand just generally when you were saying it.
No, we can't fill the chart for 2012. That's going to be how we're going to track our progress this year.
But I mean, the last item, where communicate, educate, are we going to put a due date on it?
Well, for that, like,
It's not much of a goal if we don't have a measure and don't have a due date.
well, I would say by the June 1st or the end of the first year.
That's fine.
That's why it says June 12. Now, I have a tentative communication plan in place.
What does it say, June 12?
Are you talking about communication plan?
No, the third goal
Talking the
for
third one
finance.
under finance.
There is no due date
There's
on
no
that.
due
Okay.
date, no measure.
I think that's ongoing. The ones that you see blank boxes are kind of ongoing. How do you want me to, I mean, technically, I could put down that by January 1st, I'll have a meeting with the board as well as with the staff.
I think implicit in these communication goals are ongoing, but let's set some hard targets that we can actually be able to see some progress on these ongoing
Why don't we
things.
put quarterly basis or semi-annual basis or something like that?
But what, are we talking about the third goal right now, the operation and
No,
management?
finance.
No,
No,
the
goal- the goal for
performance
finance.
indicator under goal number 2.
Oh, goal number 2, right.
The third line.
Third performance indicator, or third line, communicate and educate stakeholders on the district's financial status.
Well, you might want to come back with what the outcome of that might be. Is that a report that gets mailed out every March, or?
Right. Here's my thing. I think we talked a little bit as a finance advisory council. We probably need to do more of this than less of this. So that's why I was talking about if we dedicate the committee of the whole in November, we do something with the staff in December or after the first of the year, and then we start having some general public committee meetings, maybe with where board and community and staff can participate in discussions if we have to make budget reductions. So I left that. I mean, there's a couple.
We talked about this in our retreat. If we're going to have goals, they got to be measurable and obtainable and all that. And all we're doing now is saying we have a tentative plan. So if you want to break it down and say, we'll talk to the staff by this day, the community by this day, that's fine with me. But let's pick a date, and you don't have to tell us today and say we're going to do it by then. Then we
Okay.
either know we did it or we didn't do it. And you moved right on. Is the understanding on the first set of goals, you and Pam are still developing, and those numbers are going to be filled in for 2012 before we approve these goals?
No. What I said was that what we would like to do is keep like an ongoing chart and chart the progress.
The same thing. That's not a goal. That's a historical report on what happened.
We should
A goal says we're going to try to get whatever graduation rates. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less than next year, but we're setting a goal and we're going to see whether we're doing something
That's
to
what we're
achieve
doing
it.
at the building level for each of these.
Okay.
We're setting our goals to, that's what we've been working on as the leadership team.
So at some
So,
point, we'll
Yeah,
get.
like I showed you the goal report, the preliminary one, a couple months back, or it was in the summer, and it showed you how far we had come on some of them.
Right.
And so that's the same thing we're doing.
Okay, but-
Again, within the building.
I understand that you're still talking about if we're going to approve a goal, in my mind, we talked about it, you're going to fill this chart in, and we're going to explain why you picked the dates and the goals or whatever, and then we're going to approve them.
Yeah, there should be 2 columns in the 2011/2012 year, and it should be full. And so the target composite IACT may be 23.3, same as last year, but that should be our target so that by next year we make it or we don't. Graduation rate, same thing. You should say, well, if this was 94, maybe you want to hit 95, but that number should be there now. And then when we find out what it is, so the current year you might end up with 2 columns so people can see if we made it or not, but our target should be there.
So have you, at the building level, have you come up with a composite ACT goal yet?
Oh,
That's what we're working on.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, we
so
have a
until-
draft of
That's
that.
like-
Yeah.
Or else-
Budget. So until the building comes up with a goal, the board's goal should be something that takes their goal and either adopts it or increases it or
Right.
decreases it. So until they get that ACT composite goal at the building level, the board isn't gonna have an
No, they should
ACT
tell us
composite.
what they're hoping to be.
So if I
So,
never
so you
redid
want
this-
them to guess what their goal is
Yes,
gonna be?
yes, based on historical data. If they've been 23
Absolutely.
for 3 years, they should say,
That's what
this
we
year,
did
I
last
think
year.
we can make 23.3 or 23.4.
I'd like to wait until they actually come up with their goal.
Well, that's, no, you're saying the same thing in a different way. What, I thought what we were gonna get is a chart with this filled in.
The
and
targets,
just
right.
target,
Right.
discuss it, and approve it. So my suggestion would be, rather than going through it, we know what your plan is. Can we get it filled in for the next meeting of the whole, discuss it, and maybe, you know, and then we can vote on it the next regular meeting?
So Pam and Kevin, this is what I would do, to change your stuff around. 2009, 2010, and 2011 would be your actuals, or what actually happened.
Correct.
Right.
And then 2012, underneath that, where you had actuals for the other 3 years, this is what our target is.
Sure, that's no
And then
problem.
we do that then.
Yep, but the reason that's not all filled in yet is by the time from the committee of the whole and then to get the board packet to you when Mary Ann starts copying last Thursday, we are doing some, so we only had like
Well, no,
a few, so that's why we were trying to generate some of this and get this to you so that we could.
that's fine.
Pam, do you feel comfortable, I'd rather feel comfortable doing this way we know what we're going to then.
That's fine, that's exactly what we're doing
Yeah,
at the
no
building
Yeah,
level
we already were
anyway.
working on that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this, we're
So I
gonna
have a
put this on
draft of
hold,
it here.
and then come back at the next committee meeting of the whole to.
The other issue
dates, too.
on this is the fund balance percent.
That's what he's got.
When we had discussion on this, I said I want that free money that we got in this year's number, the $104,000 that came in on grant money, that we had discussion whether that was gonna be retroed back in at the audit or not, and we never budgeted for that 104. I want that added into the fund balance percent.
Okay, do you have any issues with that?
Do you know what he's talking about?
You're saying the money we've received this year that was from last year?
Right, and we had the discussion at the time of this targeted fund balance, whether that 100 was gonna be pushed back into the previous year and jacking up and having a 104 increase into the fund balance as our starting point. And now we have it in, it's not gonna go back into last year, it's gonna stay into this year's budget. And we have 104 of revenue that we didn't budget for, and I want that accounted for as an increase to this,
In these numbers?
that fund balance target.
And did that money come in September?
Well, some of it came in
No, it came in August,
July,
So if
August.
it comes in July or August, it gets pushed back by the audit to the
and
prior
I was
year.
told it wasn't gonna happen.
I think that's what the auditors.
The
will do.
auditors will. These numbers, this is based on a cash basis. When we do the budget, it's based on it's a cash basis budget.
Right,
And that's what these numbers come off of
I
the
know.
financials.
so
and
what I
budget.
guess I'm saying is we have 104 in revenue that we didn't budget, and I want it rolled into the any fund balance goal.
Well, let's,
Why-
when are we gonna get
It's
this?
gonna have a small change anyway.
I know, but,
It's like,
but
we probably won't even get up to 2.4.
Yeah, but we should
I
still
see what you're
account for it.
saying.
Well,
But the auditor's gonna push it because it was spent.
But then we have a starting fund balance that's higher, and then we roll our budget in, and you'll still wind up at the same percent.
But
The
you're gonna do
auditors
it,
made a
you're gonna
ruling
do it
here?
for each
No.
year though.
So,
Because you probably had revenue in July of 2010 from the previous year. So you're gonna push money back into 2011 from this year, but you're gonna push money from the beginning of the year into the previous year. I mean, it just keeps rolling.
So some of the state money we budget for, we're not gonna get this year. And we got
Right.
some of last year's this year, so on a
We
cash
didn't,
basis.
this is gone. These are the programs that are not budgeted this year. If they were budgeted this year, I can understand it. They're not budgeted this year. We have zero budget.
And so we have the overage because they came in after the year.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I
So-
think we should ask for an explanation from the auditor to see
yeah,
how
we have to wait
that.
for the audit. Do you agree, Gary? We have to wait for what the auditor's interpretation of the audit.
Then it's gonna increase the beginning fund balance, and it's still gonna give you an impact on the ending fund balance, because we're not gonna change, are we changing the expenditures to increase it $100,000? If it comes in? No. It's still impacting the fund balance for our goal.
So what you wanna clarify from the auditors, if I'm understanding this correctly, is so that it doesn't give us like a $100,000 cushion to spend at will.
Well, it is right now, the way it's set.
Right.
And I want the goal to reflect that.
No
Any other-
freebies.
No
I got a
free
question.
John has no free
Pam, this
money.
goes going back to
Sure.
academic achievement, and I remember I asked before about the 4s and 5s, and you got that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this from people in the community that we're gaming the system. And I know that we have a 3 out of a 5 doesn't always get college credit. There should be a way, and I think 4s always get college credit.
No.
Am I
No.
correct?
It
No.
really
Depends upon
depends
the
on
school.
the institution, and they're somewhat changing it as financial times are getting tighter for them. They're tightening up a little bit, but
Is there a way we can track that even retrospectively about who's getting credit? Because this number to me is misleading.
well, this number represents what the College Board uses as a standard, so you can also compare yourself to people in the state and in the nation. So if people would have to report back to us whether they actually were given college credit for the course or not. We don't always have that information.
Well, how about a
We
standard
could
like
do
the-
that in a survey, of graduates if they responded.
Well, how
but-
about, qualifying at the University of Illinois? Something like that.
I think it's not a fair, your daughter's going to college, you can go to 6 different colleges and they do 6 different things with it now. The College Board sets the passing standards and it's a 3. And you're compared to that form. I mean, one school, University of Chicago probably, I can't remember, I don't think they give credit at all. Another school will give you credit on 3, some will give you credit only if it's a 4 or 5. Some will say, since you did that, you go into a higher level of that class instead and that's your credit. You get to take a harder course there for
It
start.
depends on what the.
Yeah, I understand what you guys are saying, but I think more information is better, and I'm telling you, I've heard this in the community. We have to address the community thinking we're gaming the system. So, my point is, take U of I, find out what they will accept as credit. I know that you can get credit at U of I. Everyone understands U of I. People can look at this number and say, well, my kids goes to U of I, whatever. 70% of the kids here are going to qualify for credit.
And U of I is one of the lower standards of accepting credit from AP, from what I recall.
They
I mean,
are.
I think we should do the other thing, John. Let's educate the community. We're not gaming the system. This is how it works. You take the test, if you get a 3, you pass. Some schools will give you credit if you get a 3, some won't.
Well,
Some will give you credit if you get a 4, some
Tim,
won't.
if I may say so, it says AP exam qualifying for college credit. That's not true.
Well,
That goal is not true when you say it's a 3. It's not.
Well, we should
We
say
could change
AP
we could
exams.
change the wording to
Okay.
just say
I would move that.
How about we put AP exam scores
3 or better.
3 or better, percent 3 or better.
But that doesn't mean anything. It's still passing by the College Board.
No,
right, Ben?
it doesn't, the passing is confusing. It doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it doesn't mean passing. This college credit is under the purview of every single college, whether or not they want to accept that for credit. So we could either break it out, or we could just say AP exam scores greater than 3 and up. But because of financial time, when AP first came out, it was 3, 4, and 5 got you college credit. But now they won't accept that because too many kids are coming in with too many courses and it's too costly for the colleges.
But what I'm saying is, can't we say, sorry, John, I missed the words. Can't we say AP exam passing scores based on College Board or whatever standards, percent scores greater than equal to 3, because that's really what we're measuring,
We
right?
could reword that.
Why can't
We
we
can
just,
definitely.
The national standard is 3 or better is considered passing
It
for
is
AP.
passing.
It doesn't
Why don't we find
necessarily
the
mean
report
college
here?
credit.
if you really want to explain how we're doing, why don't you have 3 percentages? The percentage of 3 or better, the percentage of 4 and better, and the percentage of 5. That's sort of what I was getting at, and I wouldn't object to that at all.
Okay.
So, and I wouldn't use the word passing or credit, I would just do, what is the raw data?
I would
How
do-
many of our students got 3 or
I think
better?
people would totally accept that.
I would do passing because the standard and what you compared says if you get a 3, you're passing. And people, if the community, most of the people don't know, is it 3 on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it, just say 3, how does that mean anything if you don't know? It's
I
like
think
the
what John
standard.
wants to know, he wants to know how our students are doing. 3 or better, 4 or better, 5.
Well, if it's the national board, we can have an asterisk, and if it is the national board from the AP, we could have a note there. The National Board of Examiners qualifies 3 or better as passing, and then we can break it out, 3, 4, and 5. But we could have one sentence to put the terminology there.
Well, the first percentage we'd have 3 or better is what it's set up for now. He would like to see something more, I believe, and I don't want to put words in John's mouth, but he would like to see how many of our kids are getting 4 or better. Because when I was walking door to door, that's what the community wants to know. How are these AP tests broken out? 3 or better, 4 or better, or 5?
And it helps sell the program too if you can say, and we're doing this, we're doing an excellent job, people getting 4s and 5s, and we can sell the program by the fact that yes, you're getting college credit. We're not gaming the system. It's here's 4s, here's 5s. 5s are going to get credit at most public universities.
But I think we need to be careful because every year less and less families are getting college credit on these numbers because they're tightening up. And if we start to drill down how many of our AP kids are getting 4 or 5s, we don't say how many of our kids are getting A's in honors or how many of our kids are getting B's in honors. I mean, at a certain point, it's not even fair to our students to start to drill down to that. You know, I think we need to look at what that national standard was to say that this AP class was successful.
Well, I'm telling you, from a lot of people's standpoint, it's successful if my kid gets college credit, or if my taxes are paying for someone to actually get college credit for it. If you have if you make everything there, all the information's there, people can look it up if they want. I think we should, as Mike said, we should put 4 and 5. That sort of lays the issue to rest. We're not hiding anything.
And I think right now an AP is different than an honors from the fact is that you are striving to, one, be taking a class that is in college level. Am I right, Pam? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Right.
At college level, plus the opportunity, and it might be shrinking.
It might be growing.
It might be growing, you never know. But it's something that will help a child to, one, gear up for college, and 2 is that score, 3, 4, 5, helps to show them that they are ready to go to college. But secondly is we have to do some education saying, guess what? If you get 3 or better, that doesn't mean you're going to get college credit. It varies by the institution. And we can give some examples here. University of Illinois is this. You know, I just had a talk with a lady today who's Augustana and Illinois Benedictine. Augustana says, yeah, we'll take everything, come on, no problem at all. Illinois Benedictine goes, that's nice, but you're going to just take another class, you know. So I think that's just some education on our part. We need to do that. I think also that we need to be able to communicate with our counselors, need to communicate with the kids, and also when they're talking with the parents, saying, hey, your child's going to go down this path for this college or in these choices. I just want to let you know right now, this college does accept it, this college does not. So they're not walking in and going, hey, I should be getting this. You know what I mean?
Well, and that can vary. I mean, you
Yeah.
could say it in the fall and when they apply, and, you know, later on it can change. So we can't control what the other organization is going to do. We can tell them that it's a rigorous experience. It will help prepare them. The majority of universities are, you could expect, would give you, we can look at patterns of what they're giving, but, you know, they'll give you credit for a 4 or 5, fewer are doing it for 3. It's a changing landscape, and we're learning as we go, as it changes, and we share that information with students. But I do know that the College Board does define it and does label it as a passing score, a 3, 4, or a 5. Whether they're, you know, they don't guarantee it's going to get you into the, you know, that credit at college, but that's what they call it. So I would still like the 3 or better there, because that's what will compare us to others. And the other information, I don't care.
Let me say something. John, I'm not disagreeing. In fact, I'm fully supporting the idea of getting the information out. I don't understand why in this new website that we're going to see soon, we can't just have a page on AP, put the chart that Pam just put together, explain how it works, but to break the goal for the school down by 3, 4s, and 5s, I don't see setting a separate goal for the levels. I see setting the passing as the goal, put the information out on the website on everything, anything you want to know about AP at the school, so that's available for people who question it. That's the only thing I'm saying different than you.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and we get rid of this qualifying for credit to say passing.
I can
Okay.
change the
Hold on,
wording.
Gary had something to say.
Oh, sorry, Gary.
Well, I was just raising the fact that, again, I like the fact we should edit the wording, but this is a goal of the school And the question is,
Well, I was just gonna.
right, do we
What Pam and I are
change our
trying to-
goals
right.
to go 4s and 5s, or do we keep it at the 3 level based on the fact that that is the benchmark, comparing it to all the other schools?
Right. What Pam and I are trying to set by putting this down, and we need to, I agree with the rewording, but our overall goal is trying to increase the percentage of kids who actually take an AP class are having success at what's considered to be a college level. So I think we're talking about all the same thing, is that we need to do maybe a communication push on the website, or maybe on the next newsletter that comes out at second quarter, defining what AP is, you know, the score bank, or the score scale, what colleges consider to be passing. And Laura's right, every college is different. If you're taking an AP course that's towards your major, they'll give you a gen ed class, but they'll make you still take that course again for your major. So every college is different. But our overall goal of measuring this was the success rate of kids having success in the classes. So we can clean that up a little bit, and we can do a better job communicating that on our website and in the newsletter.
And use your report that you presented to us, and break that
Sure.
down as parts of your website. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. That's
Yeah.
not a problem.
All right, so what we're gonna do is let them come back with what their target scores are gonna be for 2012, and then some rewording on a couple of items.
Can we still discuss some of the other areas?
Sure.
Sure. What do you want to discuss?
Well, on a goal, are we done with goal number 1? Did anybody have anything else to have for goal number 1?
You mean the group one? Yeah.
Yeah,
Any comments? Yeah, for the academic?
no.
I'm sorry, is there a reason that we don't have the sports and activity participation that's just not available for prior years?
Last year,
She
when
gathered.
I started, I began tracking students and keeping them in our student management system according to what activities they were in. And then we were able to see if I have a list of how many students were in 1 activity, 2 activities, 3, 4, 5, and then added up for the total and looked at as a percentage of the entire student enrollment. Sports, Art did that last year. Students, the total number involved in 1 sport, 2 sports, or 3 sports. Prior years, he couldn't find any data, and you know, it wasn't, we were brand new with the Skyward Student Management System, and so doing eligibility, that's where you track them in the student management system, was we were having problems with the data in the system. So it's not reliable data. So we just started as this is our benchmark to start with.
So that would be 1 sport or one
So this
activity?
is, I could give you the numbers, I don't have them with me. There were, you know, he had the total of how many students were involved in 1 single sport, how many students were involved in 2 sports, and how many in 3. And he presented that earlier to us. And so then all together, we added that up and took it as a percentage of, you know, the total student population. What we did is we used the end of the year report that we submit, and so we had actually dropped to 1,406 students by the end of the year. So we used that as our number and took the sports and the activity participation, and that's how we got the percentage. But I just don't trust the data in the previous years. It was not accurately kept.
So it's adding up 1, 2, and 3 sports
Yes.
together.
But not
it's at
counting
least
any
one sport,
child
right?
twice. So
It's
if
at
a
least
child's
one
in
sport.
Well, at least
in a
one.
category as a 3-sport athlete, they're not counted again in the 2 sports. So we took every student involved in sports, and their name only ended up once, and they were either a 1-sport athlete, and they were involved in 2 sports or 3 sports. So we didn't double count students.
So it should be at least 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 1.
Okay, then you should probably add that.
At least
Crystal
one.
clear.
In at least 1 sport or at least 1 activity.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay. No problem.
Any other questions on academic achievements?
The National State Awards, you're still thinking about how you want to quantify that? A lot of high schools will put National Merit Scholars or Commended Scholars, and they will put that on their website.
We
That
already
would be-
talked about that. We're
Okay.
going to have a separate sheet with all that.
Okay, so what will be here, a number?
Well, that's
or-
why I'm saying some of these like are just, I mean, we're trying to track, I mean, do you want us to say, hey, we're going to have 13 awards? And then if we get the 13 state or national awards, I mean, that's why some of this is just,
Well, if you had 10 every year, would you say this year and then you got 6 this year, you would say, wow, that's really sad, right? So if you had
Right.
10 for the last 3 years, wouldn't you say I at least want to have 10 this year?
Right. So that's what we're shooting for. We'll.
Yeah. I've started to track state and national awards by academics, athletics, and activities. And of course, I'm rebuilding from years I wasn't here. So I'm doing fact-finding missions and sharing and trying to get it. And then I will sit down with Kevin and look at the categories and say, how do we want to quantify this? Some of them are national awards or state awards that, you know, it's not a number. You're named the Illinois Arts Alliance School of Distinction for the state in fine arts, you know. Does that count as one? That's one award. So then I did count out the national AP scholars from last year, and we had 10. Or do you want to do all scholars? And so then does that go to 11 total awards? Do you see what I'm saying? So it's what I'm first doing is gathering the data, and we'll sit down and then look at how we want to report it out.
Right.
I could add, you know, a good benchmark is commended scholars and the PSAT. I think RB always has about 10, 11.
What I'm concerned about is that some of these are based on individual classes. And is that really, are we really being held, it's kind of like the whole thing everybody's arguing with NCLB. You know, if we have a particular class of juniors that next year that don't perform well and get national merit, are we setting ourselves up for, so I'm wondering if this needs to be a part of the goal, as I'm hearing you talk tonight, or does this need to be part of an ongoing, like a recognition page on the website, that as we get these things, we're getting it out to the public, because one year you might have 10 national merit, the next year you might only have 1 kid that qualifies for national merit. Is that a reflection on the staff?
It'd make me very nervous if we had 6 or 7 national merits for 4 years in a row, and then we start to trickle down to 1 each year. I mean, when people are looking at high schools, that's the first thing they ask, because it shows an emphasis and a priority of the school. And
I don't disagree that we should be recording it and posting it somewhere public so that we have an ongoing view for some of it. I don't know if that, hearing the discussion the way it's going tonight, maybe we can save this more for discussion at committee of the whole.
That's a good point.
Kevin, were you talking about a class being anomalous to the trend, that one year they just don't produce?
Well, I mean, someone might win the Illinois State Distinction Award for Fine Arts. You know, that group might not never pick that they might have in their policies that they need to pick a different school every year, so we might not qualify for that award.
The danger is you could regard that as a trend,
Right.
when you really shouldn't, because it's just a class that isn't doing it.
Right, so we might possibly want to take state and national awards and put that on our communication goal, that maybe we set up a dashboard recognizing all of these student and academic and activity accomplishments on a yearly basis.
But yeah, but I think we should have a goal that we have state and national awardees.
Lord,
Yes or no? Because if we have none,
What I would suggest is let Pam do all her research.
Right.
Let's see what we have in front of us, and then we can all formulate what
Let's
we...
bring up at the committee of the
We're not gonna
whole
vote on this.
what you've come back with, and then we can discuss that at that time. I thought
Okay.
we discussed a little bit of it last time, so, okay?
okay,
Good enough.
are we going to move into the other ones quickly, so that we have something to bring back for the committee of the whole meeting?
Well, I think that, now tell me if I'm wrong or not, that this was based on our retreat, some of the goals that we talked about. Am I right or am I wrong? So these were ones that we all agreed upon coming forward. The first comment out of the committee of the whole was that we wanted to get some historical data. Now we're refining it down even more to make sure that we got very specific, clear goals and are not are showing the true facts and results. So
Yeah, but I don't, well, this communicate, educate stakeholders, how are you going to measure that? Maybe it doesn't belong there. Maybe it's just what you do, but maybe
Right.
it's not a goal.
Well, I
Just
think
take that line
Tim
off.
already asked about that.
yeah.
Okay, so then that takes care. Then on the next one, on operations and maintenance, we talked about having that category as a goal, but then, as you remember, at our retreat, it got late and we didn't talk about the hard targets towards the end, and we were going to bring that back and talk about it. So we've got a couple here: review of maintenance, purchase contracts. That's not a goal that's measurable. That we,
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
well, what is the outcome?
How
What's
many are done?
How many contracts do you
100%
have?
are done by certain day.
Yeah.
So
By
then we
April.
say percent, so then that should be reworded, percent of contracts that have been reviewed, and the target should be 100.
That's why they're taking it back to say,
They're gonna take it back and
clean it
We're
up
not
and
voting on
Okay.
it.
present it.
we're not voting on it tonight. We'll
All right.
have a
Well,
committee
We'll talk
on it.
about it the next meeting.
Okay, then on communication, what will we measure on that? We said to improve communication.
That's development of a communication plan. Kevin talked about that.
And the district website, are we gonna measure hits? Are we gonna measure a satisfaction survey?
I think for this
First
year,
goal
we're
was
gonna
just
get
get
it.
it
just get it up and running.
That's in the box.
We get it up there, God bless, you know, I'm happy
Get
about this.
Well, but what is the goal? I mean, everyone
goal is
wanted
to-
to know what the
Goals
goals
they
were,
have
the
set
hard
up by
numbers,
the
but is,
14th.
The goal was to improve the website by launching the new website this year.
okay, so
I
the goal
think-
is to get the new website up.
Yeah.
Fine.
And the due
And-
date there is October 11th.
That's
Okay.
right.
And then the communication plan, the goal, how do we know that's met?
There'll be an actual written plan
Plan,
that
how
we
to
can
communicate,
read.
yeah,
For the board.
There'll be a plan, okay.
We've already got it with the press release.
yeah,
We got part of it in place.
yeah, so,
We have probably most of it in place.
it's just
It's just
formalizing.
formalizing it into one document.
Okay, so we're gonna, any other questions, concerns, Lori, that you have with this? Because we're gonna be bringing up the committee at whole, if you can fill out more, and then that'll be what discussion we'll talk about.
So we'll vote on this next time?
We'll vote on this in
No.
November.
In November
November.
board meeting.
Yeah.
But on the committee of whole, we're gonna finalize it and make sure.
Finalize it.